you're back. 5:16 this Saturday morning. I was just saying, we were talking, it's been a busy week for you, Todd.
Yeah, it's been a long week. I mean, there's been a lot of obvious talk about Lee, when it was going to get here, what it was going to do to us. And today is finally that day, and it is going to impact the area rather significantly, especially in down east Maine.
Right.
That's going to be closest to the strongest winds and the heaviest rain. Now, Lee is no longer a tropical system, but I don't want to change the messaging at all. We're still going to end up with wind that's going to whip around from the north all day long, and there's still power outage concerns all day long, especially for down east Maine, where we get the strongest wind gusts. A wet morning for all of us. Showers, though, will be tapering off this afternoon. The flooding risk confined to Washington County and along the Canadian border. That's where we could see over 2 inches of rain. Elsewhere, rain not a big player. What is a big player, the waves. We're going to have huge breakers. They're growing. The seas are right now out in the Gulf of Maine. So beach erosion at high tide, which is noon. And thankfully, as Aaron Myler was telling us, the astronomical tide right now is really low. So we can actually absorb a 2 or so foot storm surge and still end up with minor flooding along the coastline. There will be a lot of splashover from these big waves. And yeah, some of those adjacent shore roads might get a little debris on them, but it's not a widespread problem at all. So again, Hurricane Lee is no longer a hurricane. It's what we call post-tropical. It's starting to form fronts. And again, it's just in the messaging here. Those are just semantics. We're on the western flank getting wind and getting some rain now. The track will take it right up into the Yarmouth area and then on out through the rest of the Canadian Maritimes. But the wind field has expanded to the west, and so are these showers working in these outer bands. You can see them kind of working through the coastline from east to west, and they'll continue to do so. Take you into southern Maine, where the rain is generally light right now, but it is fairly steady. Portland stretching into York County and all the way through Sebago Lake up through Lewiston, Auburn. You're seeing some sprinkles and some showers, Augusta too. A couple of heavier showers on the mid-coast coming out of Penobscot Bay, but easily the steadiest and heaviest rain is from Bangor all the way over to the Canadian border in Lebec and Eastport and places like that. And this is where we are going to see the most significant rainfall. So let's cover that part of the story first with our timeline through 9 o'clock this morning. Those rain bands will be working back to the west. They're going to encounter a lot of dry air in western Maine and New Hampshire, and they'll tend to break up and become more showery by the middle of the day, while intense rain will be falling over eastern Maine for the midday hours and into the afternoon. But during the afternoon, I mean, there's not going to be much rain falling at all, and I wouldn't be shocked if we start doing a little clearing, especially near the New Hampshire border. Rain will completely move out of here by midnight tonight, and it will no longer be a problem, and rivers and streams will recover, etc. The flood threat is greatest out here in Washington County, where we could pick up 2 to as much as 4 inches of rain. With that said, there is possibilities that we could have a few detours on some of our roads if we get some washouts. Let's check on the winds in New England. We are seeing tropical storm force winds in P-Town, Provincetown out on the Cape, and also Nantucket, where they're gusting close to 50. Here in Maine, though, it's more bark than bite right now. It looks impressive as you look outside and see the leaves kind of rustling and the branches flowing back and forth. But we're only gusting right now up to about 30 miles per hour, and so far there have been very few power outages, although I did lose my power last night for a little bit. So the middle of the day is when I'm focused for the strongest winds. At that point, we'll be gusting over 40 miles per hour, perhaps as high as 60, and that would occur in down east Maine. But because of the leaves and the saturated ground, the concern for power outages will be with us all day long. The winds will settle just after sunset, and there'll be a non-player tomorrow. It'll be much calmer and actually a really beautiful day. Real quickly, check out these wave heights out there in the Atlantic, 25 feet, 36 feet off of Nova Scotia. We're getting some double-digit wave heights entering the Gulf of Maine, and they're propagating toward the coastline. So high tide could be a problem with beach erosion. It will for sure, and a little bit of coastal flooding too. Marine forecast, seas will grow up to about 20 feet. Winds out of the north gusting to 50 knots. Tropical storm warnings up all day long. So here's that 7-day, rainy and windy today, obviously, with the impacts from Lee, But tomorrow's going to be great. Hope you enjoy the end of the weekend there. Sunshine 75 to 80. It does look wet now, Monday into Tuesday, with a little storm coming through the northeast, but it still looks awesome for the end of next week. Perhaps a taste of fall for a day or two. Some chilly mornings, like in the lower 40s in some towns.
All right.